everyone, dear beloved community. I'm very happy to be here today with two of my uh, two heroes for me, social justice heroes that I've learned a lot from in the past. I've been some underground mentors for me on some level. It's Sister Kyra and Marisela Gomez. I want to welcome both of you into the space. Thank you for being with us today. Uh, I have um, been a monastic with Sister Kaira, which is very helpful, very full experience. We lived together at the EIAB Germany, I think, for several months. I was there for a few months, and during that time, my mom was sick, and Sister Kaira helped me with that time, challenging time. That was wonderful. And Marisela had a chance to be with a little bit at Blue Cliff Monastery, and that was really powerful also. And both have helped organize a lot BIPOC retreats in our practice centers. They're very important practice for us. So I have some formal bio info that I would like to read for you for the two of them. Um, Kaira Lingo is a Dharma teacher with a lifelong interest in blending spirituality and meditation with social justice. Having grown up in an ecumenical Christian community where families practiced a new kind of monasticism and worked with the poor, at the age of 25, she entered Buddhist monastery in the Plum Village tradition, and spent 15 years as a nun under our teacher, Thai Thich Nhat Hanh. She received a lamp transmission in 2007 and is also a teacher in the Vipassana Insight lineage through Spirit Rock Meditation Center. Today, she sees her work as a continuation of engaged Buddhism developed by Thai Thich Nhat Hanh, as well as the work of her parents, inspired by their stories, and her dad's work with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on desegregating the South. In addition to writing, we were made for these times, 10 lessons in moving through change, loss, and disruption, and co-author of Healing Our Way Home, Black Buddhist Teachings on Ancestors, Joy and Liberation. She is also the editor of Thai's book, Planting Seeds, Practicing Mindfulness with Children. Now based in New York, she teaches and leads retreats internationally, provides spiritual mentoring to groups, and interweaves art, play, nature, racial and earth justice, and embodied mindfulness practice in her teaching. She especially feels called to share the Dharma with Black, Indigenous, people of color, as well as activists, educators, youth, artists, and families. And I have her website linked to, I will put there. I want to read okay, Sister Marisela Gomez, her bio. Marisela B. Gomez is a Dharma teacher in the Thich Nhat Hanh Order of Interbeing, Dharma practitioner for more than 20 years. Her practice focuses on mindfulness and everyday everything. This includes her work as a public health scholar, activist, physician, and solidarity economy organizer. Of Afro-Latina ancestry, they lives in Baltimore. She co-authored Healing Our Way Home and authored Race, Class, Power, and Organizing in East Baltimore. As well as she has numerous book chapters, popular and scholarly publications. She blogged on the intersection of spirituality and justice at at HuffPost, and I have a link for that too that I can share. and on the intersection of community rebuilding, wisdom, justice, and health. And also have some links that I'll put up. So thank you for letting me find my way through your introductions. Welcome, both of you. I will hand it over to you now. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, dear Simona and Aaron. And I'm so excited to get to be with Marisela today as well. And I'll just share a little bit and invite Marisela to say a few words, and then we'll go into meditation, and then each of us will share a little bit, and then we'll have the time for the breakouts and maybe some reflection together. We'll see if there's time for that. Well, I really want to say how lovely it is to be back with the Earth Holder community. I think I was here with you all maybe last year was the last time, and I'm so grateful for the work of Simona and Aaron and everyone who is the engine of this community and really keeps it going. And I am always referring to you all as a resource in teachings and retreats. A lot of what I focus on is on the climate crisis and how we can be responsive as spiritual practitioners. And so even if I'm not here with you all that regularly, you're a pillar in my life. So I just really want to appreciate this community, and also just deep gratitude, Aaron, for your work in building Sangha everywhere you go, as a monk and now as a lay teacher. So it's always good to be with you. And just a little context. So I appreciate the spontaneity of life. Marisela and I were teaching a different group yesterday, and was processing after it was over, and I said, I'm going to be teaching Earth Holders tomorrow, and I know they've been wanting you to be coming, and would you like to do it with me? And then we can also speak to our book and its connection to the climate crisis, and also the war in Gaza and the many places of conflict in our world right now. And I'm so grateful that she was willing to join at a moment's notice. Our book came out in February, and we've had many different opportunities to share on it, both individually, but we really like to do it together. And so I thought, if you join me, we can explore other aspects of the book in connection to the concerns of our Earth Holder community. So thank you so much, Marisela, for accepting my invitation. And I want to give you a moment to just land here with the group and say whatever you'd like to say.
Marisela bowing in. Good morning, dear Sangha. Thank you, dear, I think, dear Kaira Jewel. At the end of our conversation yesterday, I said, Kaira Jewel, I need to go, because if not, I'm going to be pulled into something else if I stay on this phone with you. And I have been wanting to come and share with the Sangha. I have been invited by Brother Aaron previously, and often when we get the invitation to come share about healing our way home, the three of us try to arrange our schedules, and because we really, really want to be together, it often takes a long time, and sometimes we can't find the time, and then it kind of drops. So my deepest apology, heartfelt apology to you, Aaron, and all your co-facilitators in not responding. I also, I'm happy to meet everyone this morning, and to see your bright faces on a Sunday morning. It's 11 a.m. Eastern time. And I know in California, like for you, Kat, you're like, uh, what is that, 8 a.m. On a Sunday morning? That's some dedication, folks, on a Sunday morning. So really appreciating this Sangha and your bright eyes. I also wanted to share that I'm wearing this keffiyeh, and I share this because I shared this with Aaron and Simona earlier. This is my personal responsibility in representing the way I am. This is not a reflection of the Earth Holder Sangha. I think it's a sad moment in time that I would feel the need to say this. And yet, just because of the way that as a society we're in conflict with each other, it seems, about how to take good care of genocide. Um, it seems that I feel obligated. I don't apologize for wearing it. I'm simply letting it be known that my views do not reflect the views of her holder. This is Marisela herself, themselves, showing up from my heart and showing up in clarity from my Dharma. So I really look forward to being with you and continue to share from my heart. And I hope you can open your hearts to receive what I share and what Kaira will share. Thank you. Marisela, bowing out.
Thank you so much, dear Marisela. So I will start us off with a meditation, and I had invited Marisela yesterday. I said, instead of what we usually do when we share, so this is the book we wrote. I just want to let you all know. It's called Healing Our Way Home: Black Buddhist Teachings on Ancestors, Joy, and Liberation. And it's by Valerie Brown, Marisela, and myself. It came out in February, and it's really a book of our conversations on our spiritual journeys, and how we can heal ourselves, how we have experienced healing, how we can bring healing to our society, especially racial injustice, but all sorts of issues are addressed in the book. Patriarchy, capitalism, climate, and so usually when we, oh yes, and there is a discount from Parallax that ends till it goes until October 15th if you want to get a 25% off. That link is in the chat, or code. So when we usually meet and or present about the book and read from it, we usually read our own words from the book. And so yesterday I said, Marisela, why don't we try something different? And we each choose a reading that's not from us to share tomorrow. So after the meditation, maybe I'll ask Marisela if you want to go first in the little Dharma talk time, and then I'll follow, and we'll share something from the book, but we'll also tie it into concerns of the climate, or how we can think about being with the earth, and also what's happening in Gaza and the war. So I was struck when I was looking through the book at how much we all three speak to our relationship to the natural world, and how much that comes up as a part of our spiritual practice, a way we ground ourselves, and how we even see ourselves as expressions of the four elements. So I haven't picked up this book in a long time. This was one of the books I edited early on as a nun, planting seeds, practicing mindfulness with children. And I was just thumbing through it, and I thought, I'm going to offer a meditation from this book. And this is one I've shared with adults and children. And it comes from the Web of Life Imperative, regenerative eco-psychology techniques that help people think in balance with natural systems, by Michael J. Cohen. So I invite you to take whatever posture is supportive for you for your meditation. It might be seated, it might be standing, it might be lying down. This is often a practice that I'll do when we're outdoors, but we can just as well visit the outdoors in our minds. We can bring up a scene from a natural place right here, wherever we are. So I invite you to feel your body, to feel the weight of your body, and to feel the mass and weight of your body resting on the earth. Being connected to the earth, releasing onto the earth. Letting the face soften, letting the eyes release back into the skull. Not needing to go out and make sense of the world visually, but really resting back and just resting in the protection of your eyelids. And let's take 3 really deep breaths, and you are welcome to sigh audibly with each exhale just to support the releasing. So deep inhale down into the abdomen. And a sigh as you exhale. 2 more like that. My dog is joining us somehow in our meditation. So letting your breath return to its normal, natural rhythm. Letting the shoulders soften, letting the belly soften, the arms, the legs. Softening, releasing. Inviting yourself to be fully present with your body. So now I invite you to bring to mind a place that you may have seen in your life at any point in your life that was beautiful in the natural world. Maybe it was a tree that you were really moved by, or maybe it was this pine cone, or the scene of a mountain, or a cloud, or an animal, or another living being, a person. Maybe it was a breeze that you felt, or the experience of jumping into water, a body of natural water. Some experience you have touched in the natural world that was beautiful, that was refreshing, inviting, meaningful for you, memorable in some way, where you are seeing that, visualizing that being or that natural phenomena, tree, cloud, mountain, breeze, and touching its beauty, its unique or refreshing or powerful quality. So let yourself connect with a moment where you were deeply inspired by something in the natural world. As much as you can, reconnecting with the memory of that experience and feeling it in your body now. The delight, the surprise, the warmth, the inspiration, the awe, whatever the experience was for you. Letting that infuse you in this moment. And now I'm going to invite you to formulate a sentence that captures this experience in this form. So you would say, I love, and you would insert this part of nature that you've chosen because, and then you would complete the sentence. Or you could also formulate it as, this part of nature that you've chosen is beautiful because, and then you complete the sentence that way. So, I love this place, this being because, or this place of being is beautiful because. And just let yourself complete that sentence. So I've invited the bell, and even though we will open our eyes, the meditation continues. I invite you to write your sentence in the chat if you are willing to. You could also write it down for yourself if you don't want to share it. But write it down if you can, that sentence. I love blank because fill in the blank, or blank is beautiful because fill in the blank. So write your sentence in the chat. So notice how it feels to share your sentence, and I'll read out a few of the others that people are putting in. I love this place because of its wild, stark beauty of wind, light, and so many beings in harmony. I love this river because it carries me home. I love the desert because of its stark and austere beauty. I love the sea because I feel borderless. I love Bridal Veil Falls because they bring me into oneness with the forest and the rocks and the mountain and the water. I love Lower Busk Creek because of the life there, grounded by the flow of water. I love the breaching whale off the Alaskan coast because it is so graceful and full of ease, totally effortless. I love my backyard because it is so full of life, and the native plants I planted and encouraged have invited many other beings, both plants and animals, into the space to live or to visit regularly. It is pure joy in an urban setting and nurtures my soul every day. So I'll invite us to take in the other reflections. So beautiful. And now the second part of this practice is to write the sentence again, but in the place of the thing that you're describing, you put yourself. So in my case, I mentioned the whale. I'm going to write my sentence in the chat, and it will be, I love myself because I am so graceful, full of ease, totally effortless. Okay? So write your sentence again, but put yourself, or if you say such and such is beautiful because, you'd say I am beautiful because. Okay? I am beautiful because I am wise and infinite. I love myself because I traveled all around the world and arrived here to wake myself up. I love myself because of my enduring majesty and strength. I reformulated yours, Sue. I hope that's okay. I am grateful because I have found a home that nourishes me. I love myself because I am wild. I love myself because I carry me home. I am beautiful because I invite oneness among the natural elements and the beings. I am beautiful because I support all of life and I smell fresh. I love myself because I am borderless. I love myself because I am a wise elder, headliner and caretaker of all the forest and all the forest beings breathing as one. I love myself because of my wild, stark beauty of wind, light, and so many beings in harmony. I love myself because I am playful, communicative, connected, and fully who I am. I inspire others to be the same. I love myself because I am filled with surprise, wonder, and freedom. So I won't read all of them, but they're so beautiful, and I invite you to take them in as you're able. And as we finish this practice, I would just invite us to say your sentence out loud to yourself. You're on mute, but say it out loud so you can hear the second sentence for yourself. And when that sentence is complete, let's just take a breath and notice. Notice how that lands, how that feels. Just curious if a couple people might want to put in the chat what you notice with the second sentence. How was that to rewrite the sentence? How did that feel? How did you experience that? That mirroring, in a sense. If you want to write a sentence or a word in the chat, what happened for you? Scary at first, then very warm, fun. Nurturing, healing, a reminder, weeping at the truth of all these sentences. It's a little easier to admire than own. Curious fear, centering, healing, and connecting, light, joyful. Thank you for offering these reflections. Feel free to share as we go, a turning toward joy. What I love about this practice is whatever we are seeing, it isn't separate from us. And what we admire, or what we love about whatever that expression of life is, it exists in us. Embracing the painful sides, yes. So if you ever want to try this on a hike or outside with children or with adults, it's a beautiful practice to notice what we're drawn to, what inspires us, and why, and then to embody it. to notice that we're not separate from that. So thank you for your practice, and I'll turn it over to Marisela.
Marisela bowing in. Thank you, Kaira Joel, for that beautiful meditation and practice with the elements. And it was very warm to read and listen to what everyone loves about themselves. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm happy today to share from the book, Healing Our Way Home, and I'm going to read something from the Self-Care and Celebrating Ourselves chapter. And I'm reading something shared by Sister Kaira Joel. So the chapter is on self-care, and we're exploring all the different ways that that self-care can show up, and also the different reasons why self-care is so important, because of our histories and what is there to be cared for, what is already there in us to be cared for. Just in case you nerd out like I do sometimes, it's page 150. You both spoke to the internalized oppression in Black folks. So this is Kaira Joel referring to the previous sharing by Valerie and myself. You both spoke to the internalized oppression in Black folks of overworking. And it made me think about traumatic retentions and how enslaved Africans were worked to death as a matter of course on plantations, or forced labor camps, as they are more accurately called. In Brazil, the average life of an enslaved adult African after coming to the plantation was 7 years. It was one of the most brutal places for enslaved people, and that was on purpose. It was cheaper for plantation owners to work people to death and then purchase new enslaved people. Brazil imported many more people than other countries because they worked them so hard that they basically worked them to death. In other countries like the United States, plantation owners may have deemed the enslaved had more financial value if they lived into their older age, because they could transmit their agricultural and other skills to the next generation. But the system was still extremely brutal, and many people were still worked to death and did not get to live out their full natural life expectancy due to innumerable causes such as torture, rape, and grief from being separated from their families and loved ones, on top of the inhumane forced labor. How does this translate over generations, this being treated so expendably? What does it do to us to have that in our genes, that our ancestors were seen as so expendable, that their only value was in their labor and what they could do through working? This was the question that arose when you both spoke. It is painful because in so many ways the Black body, as well as the bodies of other historically marginalized groups, continue to be treated as expendable today, one of the effects of white supremacy and capitalism and their grind culture. That is why the movement for Black lives, the Me Too movement, the Poor People's Campaign, and the increase in unionizing and similar efforts that are on the rise all over the country are so important, because they all work to lift up everyday people and center their voices so that it is clear they are truly essential to our society, to our world, and they need to be treated as such. Thank you, Kaira Joel. I see in the chat, Yushin, were you not able to hear me? Did others hear me reading? Yeah, okay, great. I asked because I've been having some internet challenges, so if it goes out, please let me know and I'll call in. So I wanted to touch more on the question that Kaira Joel raises around what happens to that over generations, the intergenerational continuation. As she says, how does this translate over generations, this being treated so expendably? What does it do to us to have that in our genes, that our ancestors were seen as so expendable that their only value was to work? So this understanding of the generational harm that comes from violence and atrocity, genocide in the body, we know that now more research has been done to show the effect of intergenerational trauma, what we call the epigenetic effect in public health and in medical sciences. The effect of the environment on the broader effect of the environment on the genetic material in our body. And so there's been much more done to show how this has continued on populations of people. So we're talking in the book about the Black body, and there's now a lot of data showing how indeed Dr. Joy DeGroy at Portland State University has written a book about post-traumatic slave syndrome, the generational harm from that, from slavery, over 300 years, and still we see the effect. We know now that we're down to the DNA, the chemical moiety, a methyl group, which is CH3, carbon, hydrogen on the end of our DNA chromosome. If it's not that there's an effect from violence on the genes, the violence in utero, the mother in utero, the child in utero, and the mother. If there's violence in her environment, that child has diseases, real diseases that continue into their adulthood, chronic diseases. But it's not just in the Black body. It's in all the different groups of bodies. The intergenerational trauma is in the different groups of bodies. The Holocaust survivors who suffered high anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. Still today, that is still being unraveled and needs to be cared for. The children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. And we're still figuring out how many generations. The native indigenous peoples, I believe Dr. Braveheart was the scholar activist who first, oh, I see it, there's a question. Is Joy Groy? And the next person is Braveheart that I mentioned. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Groy. Gruy, Gruy. There we go. Yeah, the effect on Native Indigenous populations from the exploitation and the mass dissemination of people, boarding school. But it's not just one trauma, it's this continued trauma, this continued violation that continues for some today, right? That hasn't ended for some. And it's in this context I want to bring in the current genocide occurring in the Middle East. As a public health professional, I can't help but follow the health disparities that have been occurring, not just now, but 40 years previous. The difference in infant mortality rate, meaning a child born in a Palestinian child born in the occupied territories is more likely to die born in that area than a Jewish child. And we have all this data now. It's not just, I wonder if it's so. It's now we are studying these things and we are factually analyzing the truth of these disparities. The infant mortality rate is 25 per 1,000 for a child born in occupied Palestinian territory, and it's 2.8 in Israel. The life expectancy, they are different. So these wars that continue, especially now, the actual acute disparity in lives lost, we have a issue coming, understanding, especially during war times, how to count the number who have died. Since October 7th, since the kidnapping of more than 1,000 Israeli Jewish people. Since then, the devastating, disproportionate retaliation. We know for sure there's data for 28,000 deaths, 28,000 deaths of Palestinian bodies. We know with estimates there's another 8,000. Some sources quote 41,000. If you look at Oxfam or other sites, some quote 39,000. So you see, though, what we know for sure is there's at least 28,000, and what we know maybe more, another 10 or 15,000. And so I can't help but wonder, in this whole history of this intergenerational trauma that we speak about in this book, what will be the effect? The perception that that 41,000 lives are expendable. But it's not just, it's their generational trauma that I'm thinking about. When I'm long gone and you all are long gone, what are we leaving our children? What are we leaving in this earth in 100, 200, 300, 400 years in the bodies? What are we creating 400 years from now? That is, for me, what is most deep in my heart. Because if we can now assess 400 years ago when enslaved Africans were brought to the United States shores, that we're still seeing that impact, that we're still seeing the impact of the Holocaust. And it doesn't minimize the intergenerational trauma on any Jewish person, United States or Israeli person, because that's the data too. And because a Palestinian life is no different than an Israeli life, that trauma is also landing. And so in 400 years, what will be the effect on that population? Just as we're still measuring the effect from the Holocaust today, on Native Indigenous people today, on Japanese interned descendants today. You see? And so the question we raise here in this book that Kaira raised is, everyone needs to be treated. It needs to be clear that everyone are truly essential to our society and our world, and that we all need to be treated as such. No one is any less. It's a gift to be born a human being in our Buddhist tradition. We celebrate that, to have the opportunity to be born in this human form. What a gift. To have been able to have the karma to be born in a human form. And so no one is expendable. And so this continued war, this politic, this not learning from our history that continues to show up in the way that it's showing up now in the Middle East, I think is, and its effect not only generationally on our human form, but on the environment, right? Let's see, there's a particular really devastating, yes, here it is. Gaza has long had water and sanitation challenges, but today it is in a state of emergency. Its dual water crisis combines a shortage of potable water for drinking, cooking, and hygiene with a lack of wastewater sanitation. As a result, over 108,000 cubic meters of untreated sewage flow daily from Gaza into the Mediterranean Sea, creating extreme public health hazards in Gaza, Israel.
Hi, sweetie. This is a little cutie.
And this is in 2019. The sentence I just read to you is 2019. And now 2024 with the war and all the sanitation, the sewage treatment, the major infrastructures that have been bombed, the effect of that on the earth. And so the earth suffers too. The earth suffers because we suffer because of our greed, hatred, and delusion, and the way we treat the earth through that, the war inspired by greed, hatred, and delusion. It's all interconnected. There's no separation. So I believe I will stop there, and I think the solution is really right inside of us. It's in any moment of despair, being able to stop and breathe, come back to our center, as Tai has always taught us. One breath brings us back. 2, 3 brings us even more solid. And then in that moment of solidity, can we see more clearly what is it that we want to do in that moment? How do we participate in making sure everyone's life is essential? And that could be with the words that come out of our mouth, and it can be with our actions of our body. And it's also has so much to do with the things we think in this mind, the things we think are protected because it's not heard by others. So how do we practice so what we're thinking every day contributes to the change in this greed, hatred, and delusion that has continuously led to these kinds of violence and genocide that we're seeing today in this 21st century moment. Thank you for listening. Marisela bowing out.
Thank you so much, dear Marisela. Just invite us all to take 3 deep breaths. Just allow these words to fall into our hearts. Thank you. So I'll also read from the book and share, and then my suggestion would be, and Erin and Simona, please let us know, but maybe we could open we could, instead of going into breakout groups after, we could have a sharing, questions, reflections, if that could work, yeah, for folks. If there's a strong wish for people to go into breakout groups, maybe we could do both. Like some people could go into breakout groups who really would like to, and others can stay and have sharing with us. So we can be flexible. So the part that I want to read from the book, and just, yeah, deep appreciation to you, Marisela, for what you just shared of these questions and the importance of really looking deeply at what's happening now in this terrible, terrible conflict in Gaza and what the ramifications are, not just now, but in the future. So the part I want to read from is on page 45 of the book. It's the chapter 2, Home, Place, and Belonging. And I'm going to capture a section of Valerie's reflections and then my question to Marisela and Marisela's response to that. It's not to say that I didn't have some of this safety in my life. I did. And yet my mother's sudden death and my father's absence set me on a path of a lot of running and longing to belong. So I know the feeling of being a nomad, of having no place to truly belong. So I know, and in fact, that was a defining aspect of my relationships. This isn't working? Oh, let's go. This place doesn't work for me? Oh, let it go. This was an adaptive, compensatory behavior to cope with situations that were out of control and unsafe. All of the running from one thing to the next thing, to law school and my career, to make something of myself, to assimilate, to be successful, came to a crashing halt at the top of the mountain in New Mexico that I shared about in the introduction to this book. While on a hiking vacation, I climbed to the top of a big hill, took off my backpack, and leaned against a fallen log. I stopped to look up at the sky. In a jaw-dropping moment, I saw the clouds for the very first time. That was like a huge epiphany, a wake-up call. In that moment, I realized not only was I alienated from the natural world, but I was also alienated from myself. I began to understand my connection to clouds, to the natural world, and to people around me. Years later, I connected that transformational moment to Thay's teachings on the nature of clouds. He says, a cloud never dies. They transform. After this moment with the clouds, I began a daily practice of stopping and pausing to soften, to feel, to notice, to be touched by the natural world and people around me. So then I respond to that, saying this ties back to the teaching on our true home. There's our home as a place, a physical place, and there's our home as in Valerie's experience, our true home, looking at the clouds. How do you practice with the teaching, my true home is right here? That's from the song, Here is the Pure Land. How do you practice connecting to your true home in the experience of being an immigrant? Or in your experience of being put in that immigrant identity by other people in the US, given that you, Marisela, don't get to be in Belize that often, and that's the place where your cells want to lay down and laugh. And now Marisela responds, That's a great question. It's something that I've been thinking about and actually reflecting on a lot. For me, home is inside. It's been soaking in really deeply lately that regardless of the place, it really has to be inside of me. The practice is coming back to the body. This is why I mentioned earlier that the embodiment of our healing on earth is knowing and feeling where our places are. Becoming aware of tension has become a big part of my practice, and in the process of practicing with it, I'm becoming more aware and available for my body, myself, and my whole being, becoming a true refuge. I continue to explore this, and I look forward to seeing it change and shift. Right now, this is truly where I'm feeling home. If I was to name a place as my true home, it would be the elements: earth, water, fire, air. Those elements are everywhere. The grass or the water looking up at the sun, the cloud and the moon, the wind and the trees. These things are my true home. It's like they speak to me. It's like they're saying, hi. The birds, when they chirp, I feel like my grandma is saying hello. It's the cells in my body or the spirits of nature and the connection to nature that I call my true home. So I really appreciated this exchange between the three of us because of the this connecting refuge, belonging, home, and the natural world. And as I read it, I was thinking about Gaza and how much I could just get in touch so much with the longing in everyone in that part of the world to belong, to have a home, to be safe. You know, this experience of being forced out of your home that happened in the Nakba, and of course that happened to the Jewish people that led to the founding of Israel. All of this getting pushed, getting taken away, getting genocided, not having a home. And you know, this longing for your olive trees, your olive orchard, where you're pushed off your land, you can't relate to the natural world that your ancestors related to. The indigenous people of this country, the Reverend Karen was sharing about that in the chat. The fact that to basically annihilate the native people, white settlers nearly caused the buffalo to go extinct. They purposely exterminated the buffalo on the plains. From something like 13 million buffalo, there were like less than 500 left after this campaign of extermination, which was intentionally done to deprive native people of their chance to live. So this linking of our bodies, the very cells in our bodies, to the natural world around us, the land, the trees, the animal beings, how deep this need is to have a place where we can belong. And you know, it's just every people needs this and deserves this. and yet we have one at the expense of the other often. So if we know that we are the four elements, I thought your phrasing of that was so beautiful, Marisela. If I was to name a place as my true home, it would be the elements. If we know that that is who we are, all we can do is protect and and preserve and nurture the living world around us. And I want to continue with what Marisela was naming. Marisela was focusing on the public health impacts of this genocide and war. And I was reading about the climate effects of this conflict, and I'll just read a few. This is from a study. It came out in June about a group of international researchers has just found that this war, this ongoing conflict, has had a terrible impact on climate change. It's a study titled A Multi-Temporal Snapshot of Greenhouse Gas Emissions from the Israel-Gaza Conflict. I'm aware even that phrasing, Israel-Gaza conflict, some people have trouble with that because it pits the two as sort of equal players, and I know that that's people have very different views on how that is. So this study estimates that the emissions just from the first 120 days of the conflict were greater than the annual emissions of 26 individual countries and territories. When factoring in war infrastructure built by both Israel and Hamas, the total emissions increased to more than those of 36 countries and territories. This is just talking about the first 6 months, right? Now we're a full year into this tragedy. And this is just the current moment. We're not talking about, the after effects. So then the reconstruction emissions, the emissions associated with rebuilding Gaza are projected to be higher than the annual emissions of over 135 countries, equating them to those of Sweden and Portugal. And this study really calls for the urgent need for mandatory military emissions to better understand and mitigate the climate impacts of conflicts. So there's these terrible human and financial costs. It's estimated also, in addition to the many, many lives lost, and I've also heard reporting estimating that the number of lives lost could be way higher than what's reported because there's still many people who haven't been found in the rubble, and also all the ripple effect of deaths of people who can't get care for other illnesses, or now, the spreading of disease, hunger, that the number will be, and maybe already is, a lot higher than what we're seeing. So the financial cost to Israel in this study is estimated to reach up to 50 billion, including the reconstruction of Gaza, with the World Bank estimating 18.5 billion in damages to physical structures alone. That was just half of the war so far. So I just want to finish with this general overview of climate and conflict from their study. While the humanitarian crises dominate global attention, the environmental impact of the conflict is significant and warrants attention. Military operations are responsible for about 5.5% of global emissions, yet these emissions are often underreported and understudied. So I'll put this link in the chat. Yes, someone is sharing, I wonder how many non-human lives have been lost. So I was reading a message from Bill McKibben, who's an environmentalist, a wonderful activist. And he was just expressing how our plight as a human species, someone raised the question already in the chat, will our species even be here in 400 years? This is a real question. And I just want to, offer from what Bill McKibben was saying, that the climate emergency is so great that we really need all of our human attention and energy to focus on reducing our emissions, saving biodiversity, protecting our ecological heritage, and that every moment that we're consumed with war, or even all the money, when I think about all the money being spent on the elections, where we have in our country so much money in politics, I think we could do so much to help our world if we would divert our energy and attention away from these conflicts, figure out how to resolve them, of course, but the need of the earth is so dire, and we keep using so much of our energy and resources in these other ways, so which also perpetuate and make worse our climate crisis. Maybe just inviting us to pause and take a few breaths and to feel, where is our refuge? Where is our real refuge? Where is our true home? And to offer our prayers, to send our energy of healing, of reconciliation, of peace, of forgiveness to these parts of our planet that are in so much pain and turmoil and conflict. And may we dedicate our practice to the unfolding of peace, of reconciliation in all of these places of war and conflict. May there be deep reconciliation between the human species and the earth and all the species that live with us on this planet. May all beings everywhere know peace. Well, thank you, dear friends, for your listening. I believe we have about a little less than 10 minutes. I saw some requests for going into groups. Is that right? Yeah, some people would like to go into groups. At least I saw that from one person. But we do just have a little bit of time left, so I'm not sure how to meet all those needs. But I do want to open up the space if people want to share with Marisela or myself. And maybe if you would like to be in a group, you could chat to Simona. And if there are enough people, she could put you in a breakout group and you could have a discussion. Yeah. Otherwise, we can stay in here. You can raise your Zoom hand or put a reflection or question in the chat. Hi, Louise. Please, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being here. Please unmute.
Well, I would be happy if someone else asked the first question. This is hard. You've given us a very real moment to respond to. I'm going to go back to where I was during Marisela's sharing about the public health impacts of enslavement and war, especially this genocidal war that were, and maybe all the wars I know about are at some level genocidal. But I'm thinking there are also public policy impacts. And I'm thinking about it this way, that I have ancestors who were enslavers, not in Brazil, but in the southeast part of the United States. And I think about them and pray about them all the time because I know they carry the impacts of what that did to the psyche. And I have ancestors who were engaged in the genocidal wars that settled this country. So I've been thinking a lot about them lately, and I'm realizing that until we can really heal the amnesia, the silences, the unwillingness to look at the history in ourselves, we will continue to replicate it. And that's what we're doing. It feels to me in sharing the responsibility for this war with weapons and policy. So I'm thinking there's a whole other set of healing that needs to happen that I'm directly a part of because I can feel it through my ancestors. And it's so enormous. It's really hard. I came this morning hoping for respite from this burden of this feeling of responsibility and accountability that I feel right now. And I think I got a little bit of it when the invitation came to stop and rest and breathe and look back at my true home. And I could feel it there, and I could feel the pain letting go a little bit, and that I could keep doing what I'm doing, which is offering Dharma spaces to look at this ancestral healing that settler people and enslavers need to do to try to change our approach to public policy. So I just wanted to express that. And be very very happy to be with you all this morning. Louise bowing out.
Thank you, Louise. Deep gratitude for your reflection. I didn't hear a question in there, and that's great. So I'm thinking we don't need a response except to say how wonderful the work is that you're doing. And
Am I right that the process is the same? That, as far as you know, that's all my question.
maybe, is it to Marisela? Maybe?
No, it's to both
To
of
both of us. Okay. Yeah. Marisela, do you want to respond or?
Marisela bowing in, just wanting to be clear, the process is the same. The process of healing is the same for those who've caused harm and those received harm. Is that, am I? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying, Louise, and thank you for your heartfelt sharing. The understanding, I think, in a Buddhism, and actually I think science is proving it now. Science is way behind the Buddha. I always like to celebrate that. Is that the reason that we're still acting in these ways is because we didn't heal something previously. And when I say the science is catching up, is now we're seeing what part of the brain is impacted by violence, that it actually reshapes the hippocampus, or the areas that affects our mood or affects the way our behavior. And so the fact that we're acting, and this isn't by any means to say there's no personal responsibility in any of our behaviors or ways of being in the world today. It's simply to say that it speaks more to our healing, that we all need to heal, that in order to perpetuate violence in the way our society and our history shows us that humanity has caused violence, requires a really, it breaks the heart. So the heart's breaking. It's not only the person who is being oppressed, but it's for you to put a gun in front of you and pull a trigger, knowing that that is going to result in injury, harm, or death. It requires something to do that. It's an inhumanity of our own selves. And so if we are unable to even be human in any one moment, how can we even expect ourselves to hold someone else who we don't know to be human? There's no, the ability to see is different. So yes, I think as we learn more, I certainly know that our teacher has told us and taught us that it is our healing that is required, so that the way we show up in the world is different. And I do think that science is now backing that up in very specific ways. Yeah. This is my understanding. Thank you, Marisela, bowing out.
Bruce, please go ahead. I know we're over time, but could we take one more question? folks who are able to stay.
It would be wonderful to allow the session to continue a little bit. I think I would just like to honor it's such a profound moment that I think it's important to allow it to unfold, but also to give people a sense that if they have some commitments that they need to attend to, we want to respect that also. Would that be all right? Like, so allowing people to transition if needed. I don't know if there's a pause we want to take here, if you would like to invite us to just breathe together as a whole community to sort of honor the time we've shared together and then open a little bit more space. Does that sound reasonable to both of you, dear Marisela and Kaira Jewel? I don't know. This is my thought. Out there.
Thank you, Aaron. We deeply appreciate everyone who's here and anyone who needs to leave. Thank you for being here. And for those who can stay, if Bruce, you'd like to ask your question, we'll finish with that, or share whatever you wanted to share.
Thank you, Bruce bowing in. This is a question, but also just something from my heart. I lived for 9 months on the Mexican side of the US-Mexico border at a house of hospitality. And I met a lot of people fleeing from the civil war in El Salvador and from a sort of genocide going on in Guatemala against the native Guatemalans. Not to mention the people in Mexico who are really in difficult situations. And nowadays we have a lot more gang violence in some of these Central American countries. So when I was hearing you, Kaira Jewel, talking about longing for a home, a place to belong, I was thinking of some of these immigrants who are on the move in dangerous situations. And it feels overwhelming. I know some of the immigrants are being held as sort of like a political football right now, almost like a scapegoat, kind of voicing fear and hatred toward them. And I thank Marisela for just that reminder that we can just breathe to bring us back home, maybe to see clearly whatever small way I or others can contribute to this situation. Bruce bowing out.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for your offering and for being there for those people in such a vulnerable situation. And just honoring the plight of immigrant people all over the world, right? So many of us also climate refugees, longing for home, longing for rest, to belong. Thank you so much. Since I see your hand, Judy, if it's all right, this will be the last comment or question. Hi, Judy, good to see you.
Hi, good to be here. I'm very, very happy, glad that I came. And I don't know how to put my hand down, so I'll figure that out after. I guess, yeah, let me take a breath. I first really want to thank both of you for being here and for your book itself, and Valerie as well. I felt like it was a real window for me, that I felt so privileged to be able to to hear your experience, and I'm grateful. So yeah, I have lots of feelings right now, in what you both talked about, and I guess the piece that really resonates with me is the part about collective trauma, and how if and when it's not processed, it's replicated. And as a person, a Jewish person, I know that is true. And I know that what is happening in Gaza right now is unprocessed trauma that's being triggered. That doesn't excuse in any way what is happening. So and the difficulty it is in people to be able to even stop and look at that. So I guess I wanted to speak to that. And the other thing, and hear any thoughts you have around that, because people don't want to stop it. It's too difficult to stop and look, unless you have a holding environment or a practice or a way that you can do that. And the other piece, as I'm listening, I'm feeling my own body, feeling heaviness and despair. And because this is so big and we've continued to do what we're doing. Everything that is being said is so clear, that what we're doing is not wise. It's not in any way addressing the real needs of our planet and of our species. So I guess I have a real need to state again that that's not all we are. That's not all we are. We also have this other part of us that that does do wonderful, generous, giving things. I'm reading the new book out by Alana Elizabeth Johnson, What If We Get It Right? And I've been listening to her. There is this whole other part of us. So I guess I just wanted to say that, and I want to leave with that as well, and the question of just how can we, I do my best to help nourish that every moment, and when I don't, to say, oh, I'm having those thoughts, I'm having those feelings. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and invite your comments or anything. And again, thank you so much. Bowing out.
Thank you so much, Judy. I so appreciate what you're naming here, the heart and the tapping into your experience. I appreciate you naming the heaviness, because I also thought, oh, there's been a lot that we've explored here today, and it isn't so easy to be with. So I appreciate the invitation to all of us to take good care of ourselves. That what you said inspires in me is like remembering, and what Bruce said about coming back to the breath, that we really want to lean into our practice and into our communities to for support, for direction, for sustenance in this is, I mean, I don't think it's going to be getting better and easier, frankly. Like, this is like, I mean, I've had such, just experiencing what's happened in the last few weeks with the hurricanes and You know, I had a friend who lost her everything and almost died. Her house collapsed around her in Asheville, North Carolina. I have never experienced being that closely connected to the effects of climate change. Like someone I just taught a retreat with a few months ago nearly died, you know. So anyway, I'm noticing the acceleration. So what you're naming, Judy, I feel like we really want to hold ourselves with great compassion and notice how it really impacts us, because it's not, I don't think, going to be, you know, the volume is not going to be turning down anytime soon. And so this emphasis on touching our refuge, right, in the here and now, right, in what is, you know, in our very breath, in our very steps. And I think, you know, one of the things that helps me is zooming out, not to not be in touch with the suffering, but to really sense the bigger picture, that this is one moment of many, many moments of great catastrophic change in the 4.5 billion years of life on this planet, that you know, a lot came before this moment, and there will be a lot that will come after this moment. And how do we have some measure of acceptance of the difficulty? I mean, this is really cause and effect. This is karma happening. We have, you know, changed and altered fundamentally our climate because of our human activity, and here is the result. I mean, these wars, you could say, even what's happening in Gaza, are connected to oil. They're connected to the fossil fuel fascism that we live under. It is a climate war, I think, fundamentally. I mean, the whole, you know, the interests the US and many countries have in this part of the world, it's very connected to our dependence, our addiction to fossil fuels. So, you know, what is coming to be has come to be because of many causes and conditions. And there's no changing that. So we have to work with that and offer a full-hearted, you know, yes to, this is the world we have. How can we make a terrible situation less bad by bringing as much compassion, as much wisdom into our daily lives, into our relationships, to our planet, to the species that are around us. And think really, I mean, strategically with each other. How, I mean, I think that's why this community is so important of Earth holders. How can we use our spiritual practice to help ourselves, our communities, our human family, the larger Earth family, to, you know, this plane is not going to get to its destination. Everyone's, you know, the government media, many are, it's sort of business as usual. It's not business. We're not going to, you know, the plane took off from New York. It's supposed to go to San Francisco. It's not going to get to San Francisco. So how do we have the safest landing as possible, knowing we don't have what it takes to get to San Francisco, right? Like, so that's what I think this Earth Holder community and our own spiritual practice, it's like, how do we support like hospicing our planet, our society? How do we do this as consciously as we can? I'm not saying everything's going to die. I'm not saying that. We don't know that. We don't know, but we do know the plane cannot keep going the way it has been going. And that's clear with the hurricanes, with the fires, with, you know, the climate refugees. So we live in this total, you know, chaotic system now, but each mindful breath we take matters and contributes. Each mindful step we take matters and contributes. And we can come back to our own center moment after moment after moment and keep opening. I really think that these moments of like crisis do coincide with portals opening in our collective consciousness. I mean, we are talking about collective trauma at such a scale across, our society that I haven't seen before. That's a portal into collective healing, I think. So I think we want to also see the opportunity of this moment, lean into it, really generate the bodhicitta needed to step into the big shoes that are that are ours to step into in this moment as people who have been lucky enough to receive the teachings and to have this a beautiful spiritual community. So it's like a call to offer the best of ourselves now. Thank you so much.
Marisela, bowing in, I would like to share also. Thank you, Kaira Jewel, and thank you, Judy. It's always good to see you. I think the clarity that I spoke of when you pause is really maybe the most critical thing, because without that clarity, we're going to keep doing the same thing. Even if we think we're doing something wonderful, if we keep the same mind and heart, when I sit and think about currently what our earth and our world and our humanity is facing, I wonder, what can I do? I don't get despair. I just wonder, what can I do? And I think the practice, like Kaira Jewel, is part of what helps me not to get despair. Although I've always been a social activist before I found the practice, and I never got despair. I always fought. But now I fight from a place of compassion, not from a place of anger. That's the difference for me that the practice brought. So I encourage us all to think about the question I asked earlier: what is ours to do? And it can even be for us, what is ours to be in this moment, right? Tai said, what's the use of seeing if you're not going to do? I always think of my teacher. Fragrant Palm Leaves is my most favorite book. I've marked it up so much that it's useless now because I can't find what my favorite, because there's like 100 favorite pages. And the reason, though, that it's my favorite book is because it comes from someone who could have despaired, but didn't despair. And I always think, if Tai could do it, I can do it. And I think the practice says and demands no more and no less from us. Tai said, you have a right to suffer, but as a practitioner, you don't have a right to not practice. And this is our moment of practice. In true reflection, I don't think we've been practicing enough. I'm not trying to be Zen here. I don't have the stick, like sit up. And still, there is something that is required of us in these times. We are called to great things, and we have the bodhicitta in us. So as we soften our heart and it grows our compassion, we will know what to do. We will know. We trust in the Dharma. If we trust in the Dharma, we don't put the Dharma aside when there are things like war and despair. In actuality, we center the Dharma, like Kaira Jewel is saying. We center the Dharma. We center practice. And if we trust, and faith being one of the spiritual powers, right? Then we will see what is ours to do. So I'm not trying to say you don't have anybody has no right to be sad or worry or despair. I also say that's only one thing that we can do in this moment. And all the other things that we can do, I say, let us do it. Because a lot of us are US citizens. and we're privileged to be US citizens, and yet we're sitting by and let our US money go to fuel a genocide that we all are saying is wrong. And so that discrepancy for me, I don't understand. So I keep asking, what is mine to do? How can I shift that? What is my participation? Is it sending energy to economic system that to change that, to sending energy continuously to these people, to have compassion, to look deeper, to heal the wounds that cause them to act in these ways? And that may be enough one day or a whole month. And then what else? I feel like we have, we just look at what Thai did with the Vietnam War. He said, stop the war. He gave up his country to do that. Our teacher is a role model in this, in so many, many, many different ways. Thank you. Marisela bowing out.
Oh, yes, we end here. Erin, Simone, I don't know if you have any words, but I know I'm so grateful to be here with you, to have had this time. Thank you so much, Marisela, for agreeing to join us yesterday. And deep, deep gratitude and respect to each of you for your practice.
Friends, it's hard to offer words after such a profound sharing. I'm deeply moved. I'm really grateful for all for the sharing and for everyone who has been here contributing to the practice of the Sangha, and for Marisela and Kaira Jewel to offer this space to open our hearts. We would like to offer Dana to both of you. I think that we have a link for Kaira Jewel, and we do not have such a link for you, Marisela. But I also know that maybe the book that you have written is one way to think about, or both offering Dana and continuing to learn and open our hearts. That might be a channel. Thanks for everyone staying longer. We usually do some kind of checkout where we say where we are on this globe and name the ancestors, land ancestors of the place we are, and the indigenous land. But I don't know. I think that maybe we can put that, if we would like to put those words in the chat, we can do that. My sense is that we have kind of completed journey for now. I wish we had another hour to do breakout rooms and to go even deeper, but hopefully we can invite our teachers back again and we can continue to look deeply along these lines. I know for myself, I was recently at a Palestinian youth movement art festival, and I know that Thai encouraged and practiced art, poetry as a way of nonviolent resistance to oppression and violence. That was very powerful to hear words. And I just want to open that channel up too for us to think about. Another thing that struck me there was a man wearing a shirt that said defund, and then it had a picture of an Israeli flag. And I thought, to defund the violence, I also thought about an American flag, like defund the violence. And I I really also think that creatively looking together with our sanghas around nonviolence together can be powerful. So just remaining curious myself and just resist adding a few words in to harmonize with what's already been shared. But can we close with offering the merit? I will invite the sound of the bell. Is this okay if I do that? Would either of you like to do that, Marisela or Kaira Jewel? Just ask if you would like to offer that. Otherwise, I can. Or Simona. Okay, seems silence is an agreement. So I would like us to just take some deep breaths, touching our ancestors, some of the pain they have carried, some of the pain that they have maybe generated or caused with loving kindness. Holding our teachers, people who open our hearts to compassion and action, and from that place of love and compassion, sending out love to all the places that need healing and compassion. Let's